Hello, everybody. This is Mike from the Hey, Are You Still There podcast. My wife Beth and I would like to invite you to join us each week as we examine life at the intersection of marriage, family, careers, and ministry. Through 28 years of ministry, 26 years of marriage, 23 years of professional careers, and 21 years of being parents to 3 kids, our fun and honest discussions promise to have something for everyone. And now, on to the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Hey, Are You Still There podcast. This is the first one that has happened in quite a few weeks, which is going to be kind of a normal one. It's not one that involves any type of travel. I was telling Beth it looked like the last one we posted that is what I would call a normal podcast for us was back in June, I think maybe June 21st or something like that. And since then, we've posted 3 different travel podcasts with our trip. If you hadn't caught up on those, you can. I know they're not everyone's cup of tea, but we talked about our trip to Austria in one of them, the Czech Republic in another, and then Poland in the third. I also went on a mission trip. Josh and I went with group mission trips, and we went to Elizabeth City, North Carolina, where we served there. And I did a podcast on that also. So we've had 4 podcasts. We just haven't had a normal one. And this one right here is not even really normal because, as you can tell, it's just me talking and there's no Beth. We've just had a crazy busy week. And the plan was to try to, we released this on Saturday. Our goal is usually to record it on a Thursday or Friday at the very latest, but I was out of town for 2 days, and Beth was out of town for work for another day, and we just had a lot going on, and so it got down to Friday at late afternoon, and she had her monthly book club tonight, and so she didn't have time to do it, and she had to, get on out, and Josh and I went and grabbed a bite to eat and came back home and thought I'd just run this thing solo. So maybe if I get a chance, Beth and I can sit down and do a co-podcast again. And I know everyone loves to listen to her and her antics, but you're kind of stuck with me right now. I just thought I don't know, maybe just do like kind of a little bit of an update episode, kind of all what's been going on in our lives. This has been a crazy summer. Maria's doing well down at Disney World. She's working at Galaxy's Edge at Hollywood Studios. We've had several friends that have gone to Disney this summer, and every one of them have went and found her and sent us pictures with her. And so that's been really nice. They all say she looks great, seems to be doing great. I know she's FaceTimed us a bunch, and she seems to be having a great summer. Jacob's doing well. He's down in South Carolina most of the time, although he has come back a time or two here recently just to, I think he got would like to come back home more often, but he's about 4 hours away. But he had a weekend off and came back a couple weeks ago and spent them with us. And then this weekend he also has off, and so he actually went back to Boone, North Carolina, to visit some of his friends from App State. And so, but other than that, he's birding away and having a great time working for the Audubon Society this summer and already thinking about where he may want to work next summer after he graduates. So it's been a great summer for them. Josh has been drug all over the place. And so he went to Europe with us, which he loved. And I was trying to get him to come sit on the podcast with me, and he just wasn't in the mood. But I wanted to get his take on what it was like for a 15-year-old to go on vacations with your parents when your brother and sister are not around. So, but he seemed to enjoy it. He had a great time. Josh is a traveler. He likes to travel. He likes to try new things. He likes to eat new foods, and he's into all that culture type stuff. He loves that. So what we did in Europe was right up his alley. And then he also has a great heart, and he loves to help people. And he went with me on our mission trip, and we did group work camps in Elizabeth City. And this is an organization I'm not going to spend a lot of time on. You can listen to the podcast previously if you want to hear the whole rundown of it. But it's an organization that Beth and I took a youth group that we were working with back in 1998 on our first group mission trip. And so we've been doing this a very long time. And I think it was my 26th group mission trip, and 22 of them as the speaker. So I've done a lot for that organization, and they've done a lot for us. And so this past Elizabeth City mission trip was my 51st, and spent it in Elizabeth City. Elizabeth City is right near the Outer Banks of North Carolina. I did this camp 20 years ago. So in 2005, I was in Elizabeth City and did a group mission trips, group work camp there, and was the speaker. And I hadn't been back in 20 years. And I'm going to tell you, 20 years ago, I left Elizabeth City and did not care if I ever went back again. It was not any place I was impressed with. It just, I don't know, it just seemed like a very depressed city. I come back, I wasn't really looking forward. I mean, I was looking forward to going with our youth, but it wasn't like, like, oh man, I can't wait to go back to Elizabeth City. And man, was I wrong. Like, that city has been revitalized, and it's grown. It has lots of great shops and stores. They're in the process, and they already have revitalized the downtown area near the waterfront, right on the water. It looks beautiful. It's just a neat town, and it's definitely one that if you're looking, somewhere in North Carolina to vacation, it sits about an hour from the Outer Banks. It sits about an hour from Virginia Beach. Again, it's right on the water, and so if you'd like to hit that city up and then, take a day trip to Virginia Beach, take a day trip to the Outer Banks, you've got it right there in Elizabeth City. It's gorgeous, and I found what I think is my new favorite coffee shop. It's called the Kraken, and it's as quirky and unique as the name is. It's obviously geared toward the mythical creature, the Kraken, and so that's what all the design and the arts is very whimsical, and the coffee was great. I mean, I think I was there 4 out of 6 days. I just loved it. Great little coffee shop right in downtown Elizabeth City, right by the water. So if you're in Elizabeth City, go to Kraken. That's what I can tell you. It was a great place to grab a cup of coffee. So we were there for a week. Josh and I did serving, and we came back home, and we got back on Saturday, and then I had to preach on Sunday. And then I've just kind of taken the rest of this week to kind of recover. And I had several meetings and things kind of planned, which is why the week was so busy. And same with Beth. She did not get to go on the mission trip with us. This is the first one that she's missed in a long time, many years, for group work camps. But she had the opportunity to go to Portland and speak at a conference. And so she did not feel like she could pass that up, and I don't blame her. So she went there with a couple of colleagues, and they were able to speak at this, I don't know, law, something health, who knows what, but some kind of convention out in Portland. She'll talk about it whenever she makes it back on the show. So she was gone also last week. And so we've just been playing catch up this week. Catch up, not the condiment, but you know what I mean. We've been trying to get life back together. Had the opportunity yesterday to go out of town with my mom, and we had borrowed a church van from a church up in the mountains of North Carolina that we have a connection with, and they let us borrow their van, and that's what our youth rode to Elizabeth City in, because our youth group also went with us on the mission trip, and we had to return it. And so Mom and I just decided, you know what, we're just going to go up and take the van back. And she followed me up there, and we dropped it off, and then got in her car, and we just went and stayed the night up in the mountains and just had a great time. And Mom and I were talking. I'm going to be 51 in a few weeks. And this is the first time in my life that my mom and I have ever gone and taken an overnight trip together, just her and I. Obviously, there was always somebody there, maybe it was dad or my sister or, one of the grandkids or Beth. It was always somebody. It's never, ever been just mom and I. And so it was a really, really fun and special trip. We did some cool stuff. We just hung out, we ate some good food and just talked forever and called up and sat on the porch there at this little house there in the cabin and at the mountains that we stayed in, and just enjoyed the nature and the peace and quiet. And they had a golf cart, and we drove the golf cart around a little bit around the neighborhood and got to, just up and down mountains and stuff. Hey, it was just fun. We just had a great time. And then today I surprised her. She did not know that Jacob was coming back to Boone for the weekend. And so I had messaged Jacob and told him where we were. And we were about, we were within, 30, 45 minutes of Boone maybe. And so I just said, hey, look, if you want to grab breakfast, we can do that on Friday morning before we head back. We could meet, actually Boone's about an hour away. I'll say that. It was about an hour because it was about a 35-minute drive for us to get to Jacob. And we met halfway. And so we found a little spot to meet. And so mom and I got there first and went in and sat down, and she had no idea Jacob was coming. And Jacob came in just a few minutes later. It wasn't planned, like as far as him showing up later. He's just always late. So he showed up a few minutes later, and it was cool. Mom yelled. She was so surprised and got a little teary-eyed. And so I think she was so happy to be able to sit there and have breakfast with Jacob, who she didn't think was going to be there ever. She thought he was in South Carolina, and me. And it was a really nice time. And like I said, Mom and I had a great trip back. And my parents had rough childhoods. I mean, both of them have a story to tell, as do most people. And mom's always been a little private with hers, and I don't blame her, what little bit she has shared. But she opened up, and, we had a couple-hour drive coming home, and she was just able to talk and just told stories, and I asked questions I'd never asked. And it was a really neat time just to spend with my mom. And so not everybody has their mom with them, and not everybody has their dad with them. And I get that. And that's incredibly difficult when you don't have them around anymore. And especially just to lean on, but definitely to be able to ask questions. And my parents are getting older, they're both in their 70s and they're both doing well, but it's just, you don't get those moments. And so it's a moment that I'll cherish for the rest of my life. And I think mom just thoroughly loved it too. And so it was a really cool time for us. What else is happening? We got another mission trip, one more mission trip this summer. We did Jamaica in June, Elizabeth City in July, and we're going to Roatan, which is part of Honduras. I'm leading a team from our church down there to Honduras and Roatan, and we'll be there for a week. And we're working with an organization we've never worked with before, so that'll be interesting. We've never done missions in Honduras, so we'll kind of see where that leads us. But so it'll be Beth and Josh and I again going. So we've hit some countries, and so for me, not counting the U.S., in 3 months. I would have done Jamaica, Austria, the Czech Republic, Poland, Germany, and then Honduras. So 6 countries in a span of about, 8 weeks maybe. So a lot of miles spent in the air over the last few weeks. So we're going to Honduras here in a couple weeks. This week, next week, whatever. We're just trying to catch our breath and catch up and, try to enjoy what little bit of summer we have left. I was just telling Josh today, when we get back home from Honduras, it's like 2 or 3 days and he starts school, which seems crazy because it seems like he just got out of school and he'll be starting his sophomore year and in high school. So we'll see. So Honduras, obviously, if you do the math, Elizabeth City, if that was mission trip number 51, Honduras will be number 52 for me. So 52 mission trips. And that was a bucket list as I went into ministry longer and longer. And I started racking up mission trips. Several years ago, I guess I counted up how many I'd done. And at that point, I think I was at, I don't know, high 20s. And I was like, I thought it might be cool to do 52 because all these trips are a week. And so to be able to say I spent a year of my life on the mission field is, I don't know, I like that. It's something I'm proud of. And I know there's missionaries that spend, 52 years in the mission field, but that's what they do. They're missionaries. I'm not. I'm a full-time pastor. I've been a full-time pastor. And so to be able to pastor full-time and do 52 mission trips, I don't know. I don't know anybody else has ever done that. And so next May, so May of 2026 will be 30 years in ministry. And I don't know. I joke about it. I say that I promised God I would give him 30 years, and after that, him and I would be on a month-to-month contract. So we'll see. I don't know what's going to happen next June, but I know that I've got one more mission trip planned between now and then, and that's in a few weeks, number 52, and then next May is 30 years. So I don't know. It's not like some professions. I've had friends that were in law enforcement for 30 years, and as soon as they hit 30 years, they were able to retire and pull a sweet pension and do some other things career-wise and job-wise, and they were around my age. They were early 50s when they retired. And so ministry is not like that. In certain denominations, maybe if you were in some of the larger mainline denominations and you came right out of seminary and then yeah, you might have something. But for me, I've just never had that. So it's not like I can retire and have money sitting there to be able to go do stuff with. So, but I don't know what I'm going to do. I feel like 30 years is a lot to do something. And I'm itching to do something else as far as, and maybe I can do something, as they say, a side hustle that might scratch that itch. Maybe a stand up. I'm still wanting, once we get back home and settled, I'm still wanting to take some stand up comedy classes and try my hand at that. I think that would be fun. Another thing that I've always been into, and we've talked about it a little bit on the podcast, is I love like comic books and collecting things. And so I've talked about it. I've redone our bonus room. I love this room. I'm sitting in it right now as I'm doing the podcast. And this is the happiest room in the house to me. I'm sitting here at my desk. I got some of my favorite comic books framed and on the wall. I just sound stupid because I'm a 50-year-old man, but I grew up in the 80s, especially early and mid 80s. And so I broke out my old Transformers and G.I. Joes, and I have them set out almost museum style, on some of the furniture. And I've got other comics around the wall. I've got a bookshelf full of books. I've got, different art prints that I've collected over the years. I'm a big Spider-Man guy, so I've got a ton of Spider-Man paraphernalia all in here. It's a fun room. I mean, it's not, and there's a foosball table, so you can't beat that. So I have a TV, loads of video games. We have our NES, our Super NES, Sega, Xbox, PS2. I mean, all these old gaming systems are all hooked up to this television, a couch, and futon, and like I said, a foosball table. And so it's just, I come in here and work. I come in here and relax. That's where I sit down and play Board Game Arena every night with Beth and Ross. But I have lots of comic books, and I started to downsize my comic books, and I was selling them on the Facebook Marketplace. And was making a nice little bit and decided maybe this is something I want to do as a side hustle. And so I started collecting more comics, not to keep, but to resell. And so I've been buying some collections from people here and there, ones that I could get a really good deal on, and kind of go through them and sort them and figure out what I got. And so what I'm wanting to do is, there's a couple of consignment shops in Kernersville, but there's one in particular that I really would love to be at. And it's one of these where it's kind of like an antique mall or some type of place, like it's a store, but the store is split up into, like, let's just say 100 booths basically. And the booths may be 5 by 8, who knows, 8 feet wide, 5 feet deep, something like that. And people rent out the booths, $100 a month, whatever. And, they sell whatever. And some people sell jewelry, and some sell crafts, and some sell clothes and tools or whatever, antiques. But in this particular store, that nobody is selling like comics or collectibles. And so what I would love, and I talked to the owner, and she has a very short waiting list right now. I think there's about 3 people ahead of me, but I told her I put my name on the list, but I would love to maybe have a little booth in there and sell comics and sell albums. I'm a record collector, so I have a ton of vinyls, and I can kind of pick those up. I know what to look for and what to sell them for. So just kind of a collectibles booth. I think that would be a lot of fun. And, Jacob, Maria, and Josh all have stuff that they've collected, like the pop figures, that were such the rage a few years ago, and they've kind of cooled off a little bit, but there's still a market for them. But they have several of these pop figures that they're no longer interested in. And, to be able to set those up in there and sell those for the kids, and, I don't know, just turn it into like a little side hustle store. I think that would be fun, at least for a while. And then you just do a month by month contract with this place. And if it ever stops making money, or maybe it never starts making money, or maybe I just get tired of it, then we just pull the plug and pack up and move out. And it's no big deal on it. I don't have any overhead. There's no commitment. So yeah. So I'm staring at about 4 huge boxes of comics, and that I've collected now in the last couple of months that I've just been storing up. And I got another little box of goodies of some stuff that I'll see out cheap and I'll buy and throw in there. And so I've got some stuff I'd like to try to sell, and we'll see what happens with it. But anyway, I'm babbling now. What else has been going on? Man, our podcast, Beth and I have talked about this. We've done well, as far as listenership. So we've done well. We get a lot of streams. It's been nice. And so we joke and say there's only, a half dozen people listening to us, but that's not true. There's a lot of people listening, and we get some really nice comments or texts or, emails and stuff, from folks. And, but nothing we've done is as big as our travel podcast. So the one that we did one back, in this, I don't know, March, maybe, once we came back from Antigua, and we gave a review of Antigua and the Hawksbill Resort where we stayed, and just put it out there just because, it's what we had done, and it blew up. It is, to date, still our most downloaded podcast, and it still gets downloads constantly, every day. And so there's a lot of people interested in Antigua, maybe, and there's not a lot out there on Antigua, I guess. And so we've kind of hit that pretty hard. So that's what we thought. Well, let's try it again with this European trip. So we did the trilogy, and it went great. It's gotten a lot of downloads, and I'll let Beth tell the story. She booked the trip, and she's the one who kind of dealt with our tour guide, but we basically were trying to figure out how to get from Vienna, Austria to Krakow, Poland. And we were thinking about taking a train, and the train would have taken like 8 or 9 hours, something like that. And, it was going to cost $100 and some bucks a person to do it. Which if you're just traveling with one person, then it's fine. But 3 people, we're looking at $350 probably for all 3 of us to take a train combined. So Beth found this tour company. And we talk about it on the Czech Republic podcast. And it's basically like an Uber tour guide. They will pick you up and take you to your destination, even if it's 10 hours away, which ours was. I mean, ours was longer. Our tour guide picked us up at 8 a.m. and we pulled into our hotel at 6 p.m. So, that's a 10-hour trip, and it cost basically the same as what we would have done had we taken a train. And this way we were in a car, and it was a private tour, and we stopped at like 3 different cities and spent some time. So it wasn't like it was 10 hours in the car. It was probably about 7 hour-ish in the car. And the rest of the time we spent at various cities, and she knew the cities, and she walked us around and gave us a tour. It was fabulous. So on our podcast, we talked it up, and Beth did, and talked about how great it was. And the owner of the tour company heard it and sent us the best email, and just was so complimentary of our podcast and that episode. And, he was asking our opinion on certain things they could do better. And he was going to share it with all of his tour guides and have them listen to it. And he said he was going to pass it out to people who messaged him and had questions about his tour company. And so, we didn't make a dime off this. I joked and said it'd be nice if he wanted to sponsor us or, give us a free tour if we're ever over in Europe again. That'd be cool. But there was no expectation of that. And there was no, it wasn't a paid advertisement. It was just our thoughts, and we sincerely loved it. And so that was really cool. But I say that to say those 3 podcasts have exploded. And even the one I did on group mission trips has done really, really well. And so we're going to keep doing our normal Saturday podcast where we just sit down and yap, and it's still going to be that intersection of marriage, family, careers, and ministry. But we're going to keep doing these. We travel a lot. So we're going to keep doing these travel podcasts, and we're going to keep, we'll throw those in whenever we do something like that. And some may do better than others, but we are up to 32 countries now that we have listeners in, which is pretty crazy. But the craziest thing is, number 1 is the U.S., which that's going to be a given. I mean, that's where we are. Number 2 is Canada. For some reason, Canada is number 2. We've never talked about Canada. We've been to Canada, but not in the last many years. I think the last time we were in Canada was probably like pre-COVID. I mean, it was like 2015 or 16 maybe. So we haven't been to Canada, but there's a lot of Canadians that listen to Hey, Are You Still There? So if that's you, thank you. I'll start trying to throw in a little bit of more Canadian dialect every now and then. I'll try to say a boat, Beth, what are you about to do? And is that Canadian? I think I had a Canadian friend that would say a boat. And A, I'll say, hey, is that good, A? And is that what I think? And I'll talk about crokinole. Crokinole is one of my favorite board games, and it's a Canadian tradition, or at least in some parts of Canada. So maybe I can talk about crokinole. Maybe that's it. I am the North Carolina crokinole champion of 2022 or 23. I don't know. In 2022 or 23, I won the North Carolina championship in crokinole. Crokinole is a Canadian game. So maybe that's it. Maybe the legend grows, with that state championship. I retired after that. I have not competed in another tournament since then. Every year they ask me to compete, and every year I say no. It's a lot like the Jerry Seinfeld, where he if y'all remember that episode where in high school he had beat a kid running, they're now adults. The adult guy challenges Jerry to a rematch, and Jerry gives him the old Chariots of Fire, I choose not to run. And so that's what I tell him. I choose not to play crokinole, and I don't. So I haven't played it competitively in a couple of years because I went out on top. I mean, that's just it. So anyway, so Canada's number 2. Number 3 is the UK. Again, we don't do a lot in the UK. We've been to the UK, but it's been a little while. But number 4, the number 4 country of listeners to Hey, Are You Still There? Is now Japan. We don't know anybody in Japan. So if you are listening to us and you are in Japan, we would love to hear from you. I don't know any Japanese except for Domo, arigato. And of course, I learned that, from Styx, Mr. Roboto. So anyway, Domo arigato to our listeners in Japan. And then number 5 is Antigua, which I just said that was our biggest podcast to date. But, a lot of folks I'm sure are listening from around the world that are thinking about going to Antigua, and maybe that's where we're picking up some of these listeners in these other countries. But some folks in Antigua have also listened to it. So the podcast is doing well. It's a lot of fun. It'd be more fun if Beth was actually here, but she's not. So, at least not tonight. What else is going on? Man, I guess that's about it. We've just been insanely busy. Church is going well. It's summer season. I don't know about your church, but our church is so up and down. 1 week is half empty and the other half it's slammed. I mean, that's exactly what just happened. 4th of July, I wasn't there because I was at the mission trip, but I guess July 5th, that Sunday, I heard that it was, hardly anyone. And then this past Sunday, it was, hardly a seat was left. It was so full. And so summertime's just crazy in churches. You can't really get a gauge on who's here or who's not here. And it don't take long for you miss a couple people. If you're gone and they're gone, then it's 2 months and you hadn't seen somebody. So there's that. But yeah, church is going good. Beth's job is still a little nutso. She'll be starting back to school pretty soon with teaching. She is an adjunct professor at Wake Forest School of Law. So she'll be starting that back up here pretty soon, and she'll get a little bit busier with that. Jacob and Maria both moved back home the week of August 11th. So we'll have a few days, 4 or 5 days with the whole family here, all 5 of us, before Jacob moves back to Boone, and then Maria starts school back. Also, they both start, I think, on August 18th is their first day. So anyway, there will be a very small window where all of us will be in the same house for about 4 or 5 days. And it's the first time, I don't even know if it's happened this year, to be honest with you, So that's what's going on in our house. So anyway, hope everything's going great with you guys. Again, thank you so much for listening. I'm going to try to get Beth on here in the next couple of days, and we'll do a Beth-centric podcast where I'll just let her talk and interview her and ask her some questions that I'm sure that you guys are dying to know. So if there's anything you would like Beth to answer, any questions at all, just go on our Facebook page, message us. There's links on all the podcast sites where you can go to hit us up directly. You can go to heyareyoustillthere.com and message us directly. But if you have any questions you would like us to ask Beth or Beth to answer, just whatever, just send them in. Other than that, we'll be back real soon. And eventually, Beth and I will both be sitting here together doing this podcast once again. So thank you so much again for hanging in there. Thank you so much for everyone who's listened to our travel podcast. I did have a few of our regulars tell me they did not listen. It just wasn't their thing. They could care less. But I had other people listen and they were like, you know what? I'm never going to go to these places. And so I liked listening. just to hear what it was like. So that was cool too. So wherever you fall on that, man, maybe you turn on this episode, and if you've hung in this far, then thank you. But most probably realized Beth wasn't going to be on here and they turned it off. But anyway, I hope you guys have an amazing week. We'll be back on here shortly with Beth on our next episode. Until then, thank you so much from Mike and the absent Beth. And this is Hey, Are You Still There?